Coming up on episode 151 of Creative Writing, I'm sharing how to pivot when your launch is failing.
I can't go back to sleep, it's almost light. These restless thoughts have kept me up again tonight.
Hey there, and welcome to Creative Writing. This is the podcast for you, a writer, blogger, or creative who wants to build an online platform without being smarmy. And today in episode 151, I'm going to talk about how to pivot when your launch is failing, because that is literally what I did today. I had planned a bigger post talking more about what I did the last year. That kind of followed up on episode 150, where I shared how niching down helped me get to a full-time income with my writing, but I'm in the middle of a launch that's not doing well. And so I spent the day figuring out how to pivot. And I thought that would be really helpful for you guys to hear that, one, sometimes launches fail. And if you want to hear more about that, you can actually go to episode 91, where I talk about if launches fail. It won't be on Apple Podcasts because they only go back 100 episodes. So you can actually find that. Wait, did I do that math correctly? Maybe not. You might be able to find on Apple Podcasts if math has failed me. But if not, you can go to creativewriting.com and there's a podcast tab on there, and you can go and there's a player and you can scroll down and find it. Or you can go to creativewriting.com/091. And yes, I did the math while I was talking, and you can find it there because math, not my thing. But anyway, so I found myself in a situation where my book launch, it wasn't failing. In fact, I would have been very, very happy to have this launch a year ago at this time. But based on last month, where I had my biggest month ever and the sales I was making there, this one is completely underwhelming. So I'm going to share how you can evaluate your launch, figure out what's wrong, and then pivot as you need to. And if you want to find the show notes for this episode, they're going to be at creativewriting.com/151. So let's get into this and figure out what to do, because this is, something nobody wants. We hate it, right? When we have created a product, or book, course, whatever it is, we have spent the time, poured our heart and energy and money into these things, and then they don't work well. And I've had several things not work well. In fact, since I've launched Creative Writing, I have launched a bunch of things that I didn't either like, or they failed, or they just didn't perform according to expectations, which is sometimes really, when I say things fail for me, sometimes that's what it is. Like I haven't ever lost tons and tons of money because I bootstrap a lot of stuff, and I'm cautious. I'm bold and brave, but I'm also cautious, and I'm not spending crazy money we don't have. So I haven't ever had a failure like that, but just things that I wanted to do better and didn't. So I'm going to share kind of 4 steps for this, for how you can deal with this, and then what I did kind of specifically that'll give examples. So when you have a launch, if you're trying to gauge the success, and if you need to pivot, the 4 things you're going to do, start with number 1 is you're going to evaluate your launch. And if your launch is doing great, then you can stop listening and not do the rest of these things. But if it's not performing where you want to, it doesn't have to be a failure. Maybe it's just not doing what you want or what you think it should. Then you can identify what's not working, and you do that kind of on your own. The third thing is going to be ask others for feedback, because you might be missing a really key piece, which I was. So that's the third step. And then you're going to pivot as quickly as you can, because if you're mid-launch, so my book launched 10 days ago. At this point last month, when my book, The Billionaire's Masquerade Ball, was out at 10 days, I was in the top 1,000 on Amazon. I was making $400 to $500 a day. And now I'm still in like $4,000, $5,000 range in terms of my rank. And I'm making around $150 a day. And that's all. These are all my books combined, by the way. That was a total combined for all my books. And this is a total combined for all my books as well. So it's not where it should be. And I feel like with every book launch, as you're growing as an author, as your email list is growing, as your influence is growing, your launches should just get better. And if they're not, that's a problem. So when this launch was not doing nearly as well, there was a problem. And at first I just thought, well, January sometimes is a big month, I've heard. Right after Christmas, people are all buying. And then February has like a little slump. Maybe it's just that. I've also noticed, and I talked about this in episode 150 that billionaire books just outsell everything else for me. So I thought maybe it's just that. But I hadn't run my paid promos yet. So this week I started running my paid promos, and that's where I'm paying sites like e-reader News Today, Robin Reads, some of these other ones, Book Rebel, and some different ones. I'm paying them and they send it out to their email newsletter. And I track these every month. For every launch, I actually have a spreadsheet with launches on them, and I share what I'm sending out, which day, what I'm paying for, and what my rank was in my sales. So when I got to my first paid promo, it was a pretty expensive one. It was with BookSends, and that was about $60. And that's kind of the max I like to pay for these promos. So, but last month when I paid the $60, I made how many sales? 75 sales that day. And you know, if you're doing dollar for dollar, that's not how I count it, because I also had tons and tons of page reads. And so I more than made my money back, even though selling just 75 books at 99 cents is not going to do that for you. I also have the page reads, and then I also have the read through. So when I'm doing a series, when I sell one book in the series and have a launch of one book in a series, I see all of the books in the series, the page reads and sales go up. So you're not just getting, so it's not just like, okay, if you don't sell this number of books, you haven't gotten your money. No. But that was a really good day, is to sell around 75 books. This month, when I did BookSends, I was expecting something similar and instead sold like under 30, which is really a big change. And so that was when I first started to worry, because that one for sure, even though I'm not doing dollar for dollar on the sales, for sure, looking at the page reads and the sales, I didn't make my money back. Now, this book also is the first book in a series that I'm doing with other authors. And so this is not my series. There's no other books in the series to read, so there's not really a lot of read through, although I do link to my Billionaire series, which is my most well-read, in the back on the very last page before I even have a page break. As soon as the book is over, I'm recommending that they go get the next series. But there's no other books in the series, no other books directly from me after this. So that makes it a little bit different. It also means that I was fitting into the expectations for our group, and I didn't set up the group. And so I'll get into that a little bit more. So when you're evaluating your launch, basically you have to know what your other launches have done or what's realistic. Like, you might have goals, but if it's your very first book, you might not have realistic goals. And you might think things are failing, or you might assume certain things are true, but they're not. And so you really might need to rely a lot more on other authors. But if it's not your first launch, then you should have other launch stats to look back on. Now, I hate spreadsheets, and so I don't do a crazy lot, but I do have a spreadsheet where I share for each book what date I have promos, what the sales are, what my highest rank is, and all that kind of stuff. I don't track the newsletter swaps because I usually set up like 20, and people have different size lists, and I just don't want to really track that anymore. I did that one month and it was too much. So I do track the things I pay for because that matters more to me. So you have to be able to evaluate it. I would recommend tracking that. Be simple. If you hate spreadsheets, just put it in a Google Doc and just write it out. Like, this day, this promotion, this cost, here's how many sales and page reads I got. And so that's helpful. Okay, so once you're evaluating the launch and realizing it's not working, the next step is to identify what's not working. So my first thought was, okay, maybe it's just because this isn't a billionaire book. That may be true. I also ran some Facebook ads. I've been testing those, and they were working fairly well. And I did have some running last month when my paid promos were going on. So maybe it was just that Facebook ads were actually working. However, I've tracked the promos for every month. So I know that BookSends also sold a lot of books for me before. So it wasn't just the last launch. The last couple launches, they worked way better than they did. So it probably wasn't just the Facebook ads. So then I realized, okay, let me look at this. I think here, the title of the book was The Rock Star's Scheming Bride, and it had a picture on the cover. I'll put pictures in the show notes at creativewriting.com/151. And the bride was in a dress. She looked super cute and had kind of a mischievous look on her face. And I thought about using the word mischievous, but it's too long and weird looking on a cover. It was already a really long title. Scheming, I think, has negative connotations, but I can also see it as like, oh, you're such a schemer, in a positive way. So I thought, between the bride's face, where she just looks like she's kind of up to something, but in a cute way, not like a really bad, schemy way. And I thought between the content of the book, people would understand that it wasn't the negative connotation. But I sort of forgot the rule about like people look at a glance and that's it. So that was really what I zeroed in on and thought this must be the problem. Because I liked the cover. I got good feedback on the cover beforehand. Now, because I was in this multi-author series, I also wasn't super clear on the trope. And the trope is basically for clean romance. You have tropes that are things like a billionaire. That's a trope. It's kind of like the framework for the story. Or maybe it's a fake marriage, or friends to lovers, or your best friend's brother. It's kind of like the kind of love story that it is. So our trope was brides, and that felt really general to me in the beginning. And I asked about it because most of the authors in there have been around longer than me. And so I was like, maybe I just haven't read any of these books. I've read fake marriage books, but not ones that are just bride. And so I'd asked a lot of questions about, well, what does this mean? When does the marriage have to happen? Do they already get married? Like, what does this mean? And they kind of said it was a little bit more general. So in my book, I knew what story I wanted to write, but the marriage doesn't happen till the epilogue. So it's like barely a blip on the radar. It's not like they're planning a wedding the whole time at all. I was a little worried about that, but again, got feedback from the group and they thought that that was fine. And so I was a little concerned about that. So I looked at reviews and I saw people saying things like, I loved this book. I got a ton of great reviews. This is like my best reviewed book in terms of how many it has right now. It has 26 reviews, 25 of them are 5-star, and they're not just my launch team, it's other people as well. And so with that, I'm getting these reviews saying this was amazing, but it wasn't what I expected. I kept hearing that again and again. And I did have emails from people as well saying it wasn't what they expected. And so I knew that there was some kind of disconnect, and I really thought it was on scheming. So I thought I would ask for feedback. So that's the next step, is ask for feedback. So I evaluated the launch, I identified what I thought the problems were, and then I asked others. And this was hard. So I posted this question last night in a Facebook group that's a critique group. And I said, hey, this isn't selling very well. Here's a link to it. Here's the cover. Here's what I think. I think it's the word scheming and it needs to change. And when I went to bed, the first couple comments said, yeah, you're right. And maybe tighten up your blurb a bit. I woke up this morning to a ton of critical comments. So anytime you're going to post your cover, your blurb in a group, you're going to get critical comments and you have to learn how to deal with them. So I was kind of mad for a few minutes. So I was like, I didn't ask for this level of feedback. I just wanted to know if I should change this one word. So I was miffed for a few minutes. And then I was like, wait a minute. They're all kind of saying the same thing. They're saying that they're confused by the way the cover looks, which seems to indicate it's maybe a fake marriage book by the cover, which looks like the covers of fake marriage books. It's talking about a bride, but then nowhere in the blurb does it talk about a fake marriage or a bride. And I was like, well, it's not a fake marriage book. That's why I didn't say that. But I was realizing as I was reading these comments, there is a disconnect between the cover and the blurb in the book. And what I found was that, okay, to satisfy the requirements of this author series I'm in, I can't change the cover and I can't change the title. The titles all have to be structured the something's something bride. So really, I'm kind of trapped. I could change scheming to sassy. That's what I was going to change it to. And actually, I went ahead and paid my Fiverr designer to change it immediately, which is part of pivoting quickly, which I'll talk about next. But I was realizing, okay, that cover really doesn't fit the book as well as it should. But I'm in this series. I can't change that. What can I change about the blurb? But I was looking at the blurb and I was like, I could try to make it seem more like a bride book, but like that's not what the book is about. So I felt really trapped. The book is written and I like the book. The reviews are great. I don't want to change the book. I'm trapped with the cover because of the series, and I can only change the blurb so much if it's actually going to fit the book. So I enlisted, after getting that first round of big group feedback, I enlisted the help of a particular author who was really nice enough to kind of look through things with me. And so her comments were that there was a lot of confusion, like I was thinking, with the trope, the cover, the blurb, and the book not matching. And I was like, well, I'm really just stuck here because I'm in this author series and I don't know what to do. And she said, you really need to realize that your book failing isn't worth keeping the group happy. Now, I'm going to give a big caveat to this. When you're working with other people, that may not be the best advice. You don't want to burn bridges in your niche. I definitely don't. You don't want to back out of commitments. That just makes you look really bad. However, I was in a position with this group. I was the very first book. So when I take the book down, which is what I actually did today, when I take it out of the series, it doesn't break anything. No one else has a series book up yet. We don't have a series page on Amazon. We haven't done a lot of advertising. I was the very first one. I think in the long run, it will help them, because if my book doesn't stand up to the expectations, it might impact their sales negatively as well. So I did message everybody and talk to them about it, and they were all wishing me well. And so I did make the decision to pull my book from the series. So this is where we get into pivot as quickly as you can. So 24 hours ago, I was thinking about changing a word in the title of my book. As of tonight, the book has a completely new cover and a completely new title and is no longer in the series. So pivot as quickly as you can. And the reason this is important, I'm 10 days into my launch. I have paid promos still coming up. So I probably have over $100 already sunk into paid promotions that I don't think we're going to do well or perform well based on the ones I've already done with the cover I had and the title that I had. So what I did is I changed the cover to Managing the Rock Star, which sticks with kind of the idea of a rock star trope, which is a trope. And managing, it talks in the blurb about him being her boss. That's kind of another trope. And that fits the book a lot better. I changed the cover. Instead of having a bride on the cover, it has a rock star looking guy on the cover. Shout out to Bobby Bird for doing a cover for me. I emailed her and was like, can you get me a cover in like 2 hours? And she was like, yes. And I love you, Bobby. You're amazing. So I was able to do that. I had to go update. I have Vellum. And so I went ahead and updated the Vellum file with all the necessary changes that I need to make. I took out anything that mentioned being a part of the series. I changed the title page and changed the cover in there as soon as I had the cover from her. And then I went ahead and uploaded everything to Amazon and crossed my fingers, hoping it would be done in time, because Amazon will say that it can take up to 72 hours. And I've only had that happen when they had an issue with one of my books. And I think I've talked about that, but basically they thought, for whatever reason, my book got flagged by the bots, and they said I needed to prove that it was actually my book, which I did. Usually you can just send an email from your author website or do something. I forget what they had me do. It was not that complicated. Very annoying though. But I didn't know how fast that would happen. And I know tomorrow I have a big $50 promo. I did a double promo with a website and I needed this to work. And so what I did is I went ahead, I pivoted fast. I got the new cover. I got the new things. I tweaked my blurb, took up all the series information, updated my keywords a little bit, and then pushed publish and hoped that Amazon would fix it. And they did. So then I had to go through my entire list of paid promos. Most of the time they will just pull the data from Amazon. So they just kind of get the data there. They don't like spend the time writing out these emails. But I wanted to make sure. So I emailed all of the promos and said, hey, just so you know, the book is the same, reviews are the same, links are the same, but I changed the cover and title. Here's the new one. Is this a problem? Let me know. So far, it's not been a problem. And hopefully, no one's going to say no and you're not going to get your money back. Maybe they'll move a promo and that's fine. But I was able to do that. I went into the newsletter swap group and shared the new cover and the new name. And again, most people, like on the days I have a swap, I will go to Amazon and pull the cover and pull everything. So most people, it's going to be fine, but it might be confusing for them too if they're like, wait, I thought I was doing some bride book and now it's a rock star book. I don't understand. So I made sure to email everybody with that. And this matters because I've already sunk money into this. So today it was worth it for me to pay a little bit extra for a rush order on a cover and to spend all my time scrambling around, sending these emails and updating data, even though I really wanted to be writing my next book, to try to salvage this launch. And the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. People think that the cover, first of all, is great. They also think it fits a lot better. The people who have read the book said the same thing, that they think it fits better. So I'm really hoping that I will see an uptick in sales. And, again, I haven't lost money in this launch. The launch is fine, but it's not where it should be. So I'm hoping it will get up to where it should be with these changes. So this was exhausting. I feel just so worn out and stressed out from my day. But I really do think it will be worth it. And I can hopefully report back. I'll probably talk about this in the Facebook group. I don't think I'll do another podcast episode on this. If you're not in the Facebook group, you can get there by going to creativewriting.com/community. And that's where our free Facebook group is. So just to kind of finish this out, I want to say that this is one of the reasons I love being an indie author. I had dinner this week with a girl I really love, and I'm not going to name her because of what I'm about to say, but she was really down because she has a traditional deal and she's really having trouble with the marketing department seeing her vision for her book that's coming out soon. And they'll suggest things that she knows don't work, and she suggests things she knows will work, and they're saying no to them. It's out of her control, and she's feeling very frustrated because so many things are out of her control. This is the thing about being an indie. I was able to, in a full day, less than a day, actually a couple hours, completely update my manuscript in ways it needed to, completely update my cover, give my book a new title, and republish it. Well, I didn't republish it. It's published under the same link. So like all the reviews will stay and all that stuff. They may be a little confusing if anyone mentioned the title or scheming in there. I did put a note also that it used to, in the book, that it used to be titled something else. But I was able to do that. I was able to make the decision to pivot. And if you're, I don't want to knock traditional deals. There's a reason that people use them. And there's maybe a time I would, take a deal. But I will always have control of a lot of my books. And I will always prefer this method because it enables us to be quick and nimble like vanilla ice. And you really should be, if you're going to be an indie author, this is really important to know, is to think about these things, to be able to evaluate something mid-stride and be brave enough to do what it takes. And it also means like letting those darlings die, because sometimes we have things that, if you know that phrase, kill your darlings, it's a writing phrase, but sometimes we get caught up on covers. I loved my cover. I didn't want to change my cover. I didn't want to hire someone to redo a cover that I already liked, but I think it was the very best decision for my book. Who cares? Who cares if I liked it or not? I completely changed it and I think it's better. So we have to not be so invested in things that we like that we can't change them to what would do better, unless you're not trying to make money. So like I am helping pay our mortgage right now. I need the books to sell better. I don't need to like the cover, although I do like the new cover a lot more, but it took some letting go. Like when I first read the post where they were like, this doesn't match up, I was like, ugh, I didn't even ask them that. I just wanted to know what this one word. I was so mad because we get our feelings hurt. We get tied into the blurbs. We get tied into the covers. And sometimes you just need to let those things go and be willing to take that brave step and pivot. So I hope this is encouraging to you that one, everybody doesn't have things that go great. Last month, I had my highest grossing month ever. This month, I'll do fine, but I won't be where I was last month for sure. And that's so disappointing, you guys. So disappointing to work hard. And I love this book. It's probably the best one I've written. So to have it not have a great launch, oh, it kills me. But hey, let's see what happens now that I've changed it. And one of the cool things too is that when I was thinking about this, I was realizing that down the road, this can be part of a series that's just mine. And to have some other books I want to write that go in the series, that continue on characters that are from other stories, secondary characters that people said, I want to hear this person's story. When are they going to get their own book? And I was like, well, it doesn't fit in this billionaire series. That person's not a billionaire. So where am I going to put them? Now I actually have a series that I can put those people in and then kind of cross the streams where people are going to buy a billionaire book, want to hear about that secondary character, and know that, hey, wait, there's a whole other series over here where that character gets their own story. So I'm really excited about that. I think it salvaged things and will help me in the long run. I was able to save relationships with the group I was with. There's no hard feelings. Everybody's fine. And hopefully it's going to be helpful for them to read the feedback so that they can understand that people, when it comes to this bride trope, might expect something way more bridey than what I had in mind. So again, I hope this is encouraging to you. Don't fear if things aren't going according to plan. Be willing to be flexible. Be willing to move quickly on your feet and be bold, because I think it can really pay off in the long run. And you know what? We test everything and we just do our best, because sometimes it's hard to tell. Maybe it's just because this book isn't a billionaire. Maybe this will not make any difference at all in sales, but I really hope it will. And I really do think it will. So that's it for today. If you want to go to the show notes again, creativewriting.com/151. If you want to get my weekly emails with tips, news, resources, and more, go to creativewriting.com/quick fix. And I keep forgetting to thank the lovely musician who you are hearing right now, Jasmine Commerce. And you can go to jasminecommercemusic.com to find all of her music. It's amazing. Thank you so much for listening. Now, go out, create content that you love, and serve your people well.